Hello everybody, welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. Today what you're looking at is a 53-seat SSTO that we are going to be taking to the Monarch. So without further ado, let's get this video started, and then I'll discuss some of the stuff that I want to talk to you guys about. Because firstly, if you didn't see my last video, if you're watching this way in your time in advance, it doesn't pertain to you. But if you watch my channel update, basically I said have some stuff going on, so uploads may kind of drop in frequency. But hopefully now I'm going to try to get back into the swing of things, try to do daily videos now, daily KSP videos like you see, but no guarantees. But check the channel update if you want more information about that. But what this video is really about is this SSTO that you're looking at. So what I've done is I've fired up the Rapier engines, and we've gone down the runway, and now we are climbing out, trying to get to about 450 meters a second, so the Rapiers can get into their maximum thrust. This SSTO, despite being pretty big, 53 seats, has a really great TWR. So as you can see, we're pitching quite steeply up to increase our speed. We're well above that speed right now. We're above 700 meters a second now, and we're climbing through 5 kilometers. I found that if I had a more shallow, ascent, that I would just be losing a ton of efficiency, because other times that I did this, I had the ascent take twice as long as I was only like 100 meters a second faster at this point, and I had spent twice as much fuel. So keep that in mind. Shallower is not always better, despite what some people say. But I'm not. In their context, it usually is, but there's different context. My point is, context is important. But right now what we're doing is we're accelerating through 18 kilometers now. Above 10 kilometers, I kind of lowered the nose a little bit to try and get as much speed out as possible out of the jet engine mode of the Rapiers. And then passing 20 kilometers, when the Rapiers really start to lose thrust, I fired up the 9 nuclear engines that we have on board, just to help give us a little bit more thrust until we can go into the closed cycle modes on the Rapiers, which is the least efficient part of our flight, where we're burning a ton of oxidizer. Actually, it's the only point in our flight where we're burning any oxidizer, which we have just entered now. And what we're going to try and do is spend as least amount of time in that mode as possible. We really only have just over 500 meters a second of delta V in oxidizer mode, or closed cycle mode on the Rapiers. So we're going to use as much of that as possible to get to set our APWAPs. As you can see, it's just run out now. I'm just going to rely on the nuclears to get us the rest of the way to our APWAPs, or get our APWAPs set. We're going to set about 85 kilometers for our APWAPs. And then when you do that, we're going to just cut the nuclears and glide up to our APWAPs. I've said that word way too many times. One thing I do want to mention is what you're looking at, the real plume on the nuclear engines. It's a mod that I will actually be discussing in one moment, because there's something I do want to quickly note. If you're looking at the burn indicator, the burn time indicator, it says like start burn, and however, like I should have done it already. So what I'm doing is I'm like puffing the engines to full power, and then I'm hitting Z and X again right away. I don't know why, but that is what gives me an accurate burn time. So that burn time that you were looking at just a second ago, inaccurate. The new one, which was about just over 2-minute burn, is the accurate one. And just missed the solar panel deployment. The solar panels aren't really in a great place. A lot of times they're blocked by the biggest tail fin, but I need to put them behind an inlet, because the solar panels have really bad heat tolerance, and they can explode during the ascent. So they do need some sort of like protection, basically. So that's why they're back there. Well, that does cause some problems in the future, but stay tuned. But basically, what I did want to talk about in regards to the real plume mod was basically if you're looking at my frame rate right now, especially if you're looking at it during the ascent or in the takeoff portion of the video. If you want to see my frame rate, you can see it in the top left corner. It's kind of hard to see behind the time warp, but you can only go in the 4 corners with NVIDIA, so I just decided that one. It's 7 right now. It's 7. So I've been doing a little bit of digging. At first I thought it had something to do with just it being a big craft, but this started happening on like almost all my SSTOs, especially, and a lot of my rockets too. So I started to like, this might not be a part count problem. So I'm like, well, maybe it's I have too many craft in my save, because my at the KSC my save is actually rather cluttered. There's like boosters and stuff hanging out. I'm like, okay, I'll start a new save. Exactly the same. So big thanks to my friend who actually did find the problem. It was real plume. It just screws everything up, especially with the Rapier's engine. So in future videos, the real plume mod will be gone because it made KSP like very unfun to play. And you know, it did contribute to me not uploading because everything took infinitely longer to do because, you know, lag and stuff. It was very demotivating because everything, you know, it's like watching a PowerPoint, and watching a PowerPoint for hours is not very good video making environment. So that is just another reason that the uploads. Theoretically, I have time to kind of, if I wanted to, I could be pumping out daily videos, but they would be like not the quality videos that I would want to do, and they'd all be like, you know, like kind of videos that people have already done before, and I really don't like doing videos that people have already done before. Like, there's a lot of MUN SSTOs, but there aren't like that many Monarch SSTOs, so you know, and so I don't, you know, I don't like trying to copy people, and if I just throw like a video together in an hour and a half that I have at night, like, it would be like, you know, it'd be like something like sending 12 Kerbals to Minmus SSTO or something like along those lines, you know, micro space station around Elu, some, you know, that kind of stuff. Not really stuff that I'm really interested in, even though a micro station around Elu could be pretty cool. So if you guys want that, let me know. That's probably a bad example because that's a little more high effort, but, you know, sending a car, sending like a buggy to the MUN, even though I did send the buggy to Drez, but that was kind of a separate, you know, Drez Canyon, pretty cool. Check that video out if you want. But yeah, that's another reason that I didn't really want to upload. But, you know, I'm trying to get back into the swing of things, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Artemis will be coming back in a few days. I made some errors in my construction of my lander, so it's taken a little more time than anticipated, and there's also been just a bit of stuff going around in the worlds right now. If you live in America, you may know what I'm referring to. There is a bit of an event that happened, bit of an important, you know, unless you're living under a rock, you know, you should know what I'm referring to. A particular story that has kind of dominated the news in the last few days that, you know, it's rather interesting. And just a fun fact about me, I'm big into like reading. No, just kidding. If anyone knows me in real life, I hate reading, actually. Reading is the worst. Reading can go die in a hole. I dislike reading, but, you know, I like to know stuff. Not a fan of not being in the know, so, I mean, who really is? Who likes not knowing things? So I've been just kind of a little bit distracted lately. Just all these factors piled up to basically mean that the videos, not as many as I wanted to, but who cares? We're moving on into the future, and basically I've just talked past actually basically the unimportant part that you guys have seen a million times, the, you know, the transfer burn and the circularization burn. But now you can see the Monarch coming into view, right guys? There it is, the Monarch. So I'm just doing a little bit of translational maneuvers, not pointing exactly retrograde, just because I'm trying to get my landing site as close as possible to the Monarch. And granted, it is down a little bit of a hill. Didn't quite get it perfect, but, you know, I thought I got pretty close. If you never visited the Monarch, it's a great place. It's a lot bigger than you think it is. Like, it's pretty darn big. But you guys will see that in a second as we do our landing. This is not a very efficient way to do the landing. You should try and start your burn as late as possible. You shouldn't be dilly-dallying here around like half thrust for 30 minutes. So that's just something to keep in mind. Kerbal Engineer does have a readout for when to start it's called quote-unquote suicide burn. But that is just inaccurate. I wanted to try that for this mission, but just inaccurate. I mean, theoretically it's good, but we're landing, so there we go. We've not a very graceful landing. We kind of just flopped onto the engines, and then we'll just flop onto our nose gear, but plop, ploppity plop. But, you know, we made it nonetheless. And now we have to get up that hill, which is actually easier said than done. Like, you think it's just in a car, you hit the gas pedal, but no, we have to like use our engines, and we're using Delta V to get up to drive up a hill. It's kind of weird to think about it, but Yeah, I wound up using like 100 meters a second to get up this stupid hill. It actually took quite a bit of delta V, quite a bit of thrust too, and these nuclears. I have 9 of them, which is a fair number, and my thrust to weight is not very good, but nevertheless we're getting up to the top here, and we can go ahead and say hi to the Monarch. Now there are 53 Kerbals on board. Rest assured, I'm not going to EVA them. I do EVA Bob to just he has a look around the area, but my performance was already like 10 FPS. I was not going to disembark 50 Kerbals. That was not an ideal situation, and it would take too long. But there are 53 Kerbals. You can see the seats, the room. They are there. Don't worry. Just because I don't show them isn't there. Picture time. Picture time. We all like pictures, don't we, guys? But then we're gonna get Bob out now. Jeb and Val and Bill are not here. They are. If you watch the Artemis Project series videos, they're on a different part of the moon right now. They're at the South Pole, waiting a base to be built by them. They landed there as part of the Artemis series, so they're ecstatically waiting. But Bob was the only orange suit who wasn't gifted the honor of coming along on the SLS rocket. But he's going to get on this mission, plant a flag, and in Kerbal style, just completely flop his face onto the plane. But that's not important. He's going to now fly around. I take a few more pictures, and then I cut that out because that would have been boring. And then we're just going to re-embark onto the plane, and then we can get our way back to Kerbin. Yep, it is the end of the stay on the Mun. And then we're going to go ahead and fire up the engines and get out of here for the final time, even though this is the only time we're getting out of here, well, at least on this mission. So if you're actually looking carefully at the nav ball, well, not carefully, just looking at it at all, you may realize that we are departing and our heading is 180 degrees, which is a polar orbit. So that means that we are in a polar orbit, essentially, which is not really what you want to do from an efficiency standpoint, but it's just those landing gear can't turn, so there really is no way to turn. The only way to turn would have been to take off and then do a rotate maneuver and then fly the other way, which would have cost 200 delta V, and that was 200 delta V that I probably could have done, but it'd have been too sketchy because at the end of the video I come down and to 200 delta V. So if I had done some shenanigans here, it could have been bad. And, speaking of stuff that could have been bad, I almost crashed on my ascent. I kind of underestimated how much power those nuclear had. But nevertheless, we didn't crash. And we're going to go ahead and start pitching over now. Ideally, you want to be as close to flat as possible because, every degree you're pitched up, you're not increasing your horizontal speed, which is not helping you get into orbit, which is just inefficient. You're using it to fight gravity, which is not energy you will ever get to use into your orbit. Only horizontal speed is what you can use for your orbit. So I'm trying to get a nice combination of getting my periaps or my apoaps up, which we're going to aiming for just a 20-kilometer orbit. You could do lower, but I just figured, let's do 20. Why not? So that is that. We have just cut the engines out now, and then we're going to be drifting up to our apoaps, and then we're going to get ready to circularize and head back to the lovely, lovely, lovely home planet of Kerbin, or the Kerbal's home planet. And then you can see there's polar orbit, and then we'll time warp down, down, up, down, who knows? I mean, this is space. There is no up and down. There is just space. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to start our burn now, and here in a few seconds, I don't know, that kind of sounded like that might go somewhere, but nope, see, I don't. Here's a dirty little secret. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do now is, this is actually quite interesting. I'm looking here, I'm like, okay, this is kind of the logical thing to do. It's like, okay, well, let's get our burn towards Kerbin, but no. Actually, what we want to do is we want to burn away, get our apoaps as high as possible. That is actually the goal. Our apoaps relative to Kerbin as high as possible. So we're going to try and get ourselves all the way out to Minmus height. You might be thinking, well, that's a little counterintuitive. Don't we want to be going to Kerbin? But here's the thing. Lowering your periaps costs less delta V the higher your apoaps is. So basically, Had we done a normal burn and just headed straight towards Kerbal, we would have had to lower our apoaps down into Kerbal's atmosphere, which would have cost about 200 meters a second at delta V. Doing it from this high orbit will only cost us about 115 meters a second at delta V. So we're effectively saving 100 meters a second at delta V by having a higher orbit. It's kind of weird, but if you think about it, it makes sense because physics. I hope I did a good job explaining that. I probably didn't because I'm a very stupid person. So we're going to time up to our apoaps. A definite downside of this higher orbit is that you are going to be coming in from a higher altitude, which means you're going to be coming in faster and therefore hotter. So it's going to take an extra aero brake pass. We don't go straight down and then land. We have to do a few passes around to slow ourselves down. Because we would have just exploded. We almost do explode at some point in this mission. So that's basically all the burning we're going to need to do for the engine. So we're just going to they're going to be off for the rest of the mission because we don't need them. That's all the burns done, and now it's just going to let the atmosphere do the rest. So we retracted the solar panels because it would have been very bad for them to be exposed to the atmosphere, but it looks like one of them is getting a heat gauge. I don't know why. And then I turn and then it goes away, and then it's not even in the airstream, and then I turn the other way and it explodes. The other one didn't do that. I have no idea why. It wasn't even in the airstream. So rip solar panel. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to pump the fuel into the front. A major problem with this thing is it was kind of back heavy. I say that kind of because it's not actually. It is balanced. I checked in the spaceband hangar, and unless there's some wonky stuff going on, it should not be a problem. But it was really wanting to flip out on me. So during our final re-entry, or our final pass, we have to kind of just hold prograde the whole way down, because if I ever try to do any sort of pitching or rolling, or not, well, rolling is fine, but pitching or kind of turning in one direction to try and get more drag, we would just spin out of control and kind of fly backwards. You can see it kind of trying to point retrograde during these passes as well. So that is an unfortunate thing that occurs, but what can you do? We do come up with some. Well, I do. You guys aren't really flying this mission. You could. I mean, maybe you're following along. I don't know. This isn't a good MUN SSTO. There are better ones out there. Matlon. Okay, time for another tangent. Matlon makes really good looking SSTOs. I don't. I've tried, but he makes very good SS looking. I don't know how he does it. My SSTOs all tend to look like exactly the same. Like this one bears some very, very striking resemblance to the 500-ton SSTO. And because I forgot to deploy the solar panel when I got back up, turns out I ran out of vector charts. So I decided to cheat because I am a cheater in life. Remember to deploy the solar panel, kids. But now we're going to be going and doing our final re-entry. Just messing with the control surfaces, and then I'm just going to let it point prograde basically all the way down to 2 kilometers, because I just if I touch anything I was afraid it was going to flip out, and it probably would have. So that's what we're going to be doing now as we begin our final pass to enter. So this thing is actually remarkably aerodynamic on the way down. It does not want to slow down. If you're looking at the speed, we are down 40 kilometers, still speeding up. Barely, though, but I mean, we're speeding up. And if you're looking at the temperature gauge on the cockpit, it's starting to get relatively warm. So I'm okay, well, what's the plan here? I already this is my second attempt at this pass, because the first one, the cockpit literally did blow up. So I'm let's lower the landing gear. You guys can see that now. Lower the landing gear. Would you look at that? And that just solved all the problems. In real life, if you ever acquire even a plane, don't do that. You will explode the landing gear. You will rip them off. But this is Kerbal. Everything. A lot of things are magic that happen in this game, including the landing, which I will discuss here in a second. But you can see we're starting to slow down now, and the G meter is ever so slightly rising, and we're through 20 kilometers now. It should be about through peak heating right about now, and then you can see we're starting to hit the real thick parts of the atmosphere, and then we're starting to really slow down. And now we can talk about the landing, and I just would get off of prograde now and start doing my own thing. Full disclosure, guys, but I'm gonna preface this big I cheat here for this landing, but I do want to preface this by saying I will show you guys how to actually do it in a second, but it was just not cooperating with me. I don't know if it was because of the hills of the desert or just some weird thing that I wasn't doing right or whatever, but the plane was not cooperating. It was probably over an hour I messed around with it and it just would not land. So I did cheat for this landing. Sorry, but I just do want to prove to you guys right here. This isn't. I went back to the Space Center and I tested it, so it can be landed. It is a perfectly landable thing. It just, like, that is with no cheats. No cheats right there. You guys will see in a second. I'll pull up the cheat menu. There are no cheats, but for the landing in the desert, there were cheats on. I don't know why it wasn't. The landing gear in Kerbal are just they're broken. They're completely broken, but just there it is. It can land. It seems like all the SSTOs I make can't land. I don't know. Is this a me problem? If anyone knows what's going on, I certainly don't. And then you guys can kind of see, because this is in real time, not time lapsed, how just disastrous the frame rate is. But that's going to do for today's video. Hopefully there'll be one tomorrow. If not, sorry. Yeah, thank you for watching. So next time, please rate or comment to this video. Once again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and bye.